Their story began long before they could even spell their names, before the world taught them that love and loyalty could fade. Barefoot and breathless, Paul and Martins chased after battered footballs on the dusty streets, their laughter echoing between the cramped houses like music only the angels could understand. At break time, they split a single snack without ever arguing who got the bigger piece. On Sundays, they showed up at church wearing matching shirts their mothers had proudly sewn, bright colors stitched with love and innocence. They weren't just friends, they were brothers by choice, not blood. Wherever Paul went, Martins followed, and wherever Martins stood, Paul's shadow wasn't far behind. People in the neighborhood would smile knowingly and say, "See those two? That's what friendship is supposed to look like." Their parents loved them both as if they shared the same home. Paul's mother would call out, "Martins, your food is getting cold." And Martin's father would grin at gatherings and say, "Ah, this is my other son, Paul." Even pastors used their story to preach about loyalty, about how friendship, when pure, mirrors the love of God. To everyone around them, their bond was unbreakable, a rare, living proof that goodness still existed in a world too quick to forget it. But time has a way of testing even the purest hearts, and in the city where dreams soar and crumble in the same breath, not even the strongest friendship is safe from the cracks that life brings. As Paul and Martins grew older, their friendship became even stronger. They went to the same schools, from nursery all the way to university. They studied together, played together, and dreamed about the future together. They always said, "No matter what happens, we'll rise side by side." Then one day, something big happened. A special chance came, a scholarship to study in a famous university in America. It was the kind of chance every young person in Nigeria dreamed about. Both Paul and Martins applied for it. For many weeks, they prayed every night, holding hands and talking about the great life they would live when they got there, but when the results came out, only Paul's name was on the list. Martins didn't get it. At first, they just stared at the screen. No one spoke. It felt like the world had stopped. Paul's heart hurt. Martins tried to smile and said softly, "It's fine. Maybe my time will come later." But both of them were broken inside. They had done everything together, and now, for the first time, life was separating them. That night, they talked for hours. Finally, Paul said, "We started together, and will continue together." So he made a big choice. He turned down the scholarship. They didn't tell their parents, because they knew their parents would be very upset if they found out. Still, they kept hoping. They kept applying for new scholarships, praying that one day both their names would appear on the same list. A year passed. Then, another scholarship came. And again. Only Paul was chosen. This time, Martins told him to go. "You can't keep waiting for me," he said, trying not to cry. "Go and make us proud. If I don't get my own scholarship before you finish school, just promise me that you will come back to us." At the airport, Martins stood by the gate, waving as the plane lifted into the bright Lagos sky. His eyes followed it until it disappeared behind the clouds. He didn't know that this goodbye would change everything between them forever. 3 years passed. Paul returned from the US a changed man. He had seen the world, learned, grown, and achieved things that made his parents proud. When he landed at the airport, Martins was the first person to welcome him. They hugged tightly, laughing, crying, talking all at once. Their friendship seemed untouched by distance. They spent days catching up, driving through the streets of Lagos, eating suya at night, and remembering their childhood. But life has its way of testing hearts. 2 months after his return, Paul got a life-changing phone call. A big oil company in Lagos wanted to hire him. The salary was huge, the benefits amazing. He could hardly believe it. When he told Martins, they celebrated together like brothers. Soon, Paul bought a new car, then a house. Out of love and loyalty, he told Martins to move in with him. They shared everything, the same roof, the same meals, even the same car. But beneath the laughter and shared memories, something dark began to grow inside Martins. A quiet, poisonous envy that no one could see. Martins tried to hide it, but every time he saw Paul succeed, something inside him burned. He told himself he was happy for his friend, but deep down he couldn't understand why everything good always happened to Paul. They had studied together, worked together, dreamed together, yet Paul got all the blessings. Why him? Martins would whisper to himself late at night while staring at Paul's car parked in the compound. What does he have that I don't? The more Paul prospered, the more Martin's heart darkened. Paul, ever trusting, never noticed. He still treated Martins like his own blood. When people praised him, he always said, "It's not just me, Martins has been my strength." He didn't know that the man who once celebrated his victories now secretly wished for his downfall. Hatred slowly replaced love, and envy started whispering evil ideas into Martin's mind. Until one day, the whisper became a plan, a terrible plan he could no longer resist. One evening, Martin smiled at Paul and said, "Bro, there's a friend of mine hosting a birthday party tonight. Come with me, it'll be fun." Paul didn't think twice. He trusted Martins completely. Before they left, Martins poured him a glass of wine, saying, "Let's toast to new beginnings." Paul drank it, unaware it was laced with sleeping pills. A few minutes into their drive, his eyelids grew heavy. He tried to speak, but his tongue felt thick. Martins drove silently, his hands trembling on the steering wheel as guilt and wickedness battled inside him. When they reached the quiet outskirts near a river, Paul was fast asleep. Martin stopped the car, dragged his unconscious friend out, and stared at him under the dim moonlight. For a moment, he hesitated, memories of their childhood flashing before his eyes, then darkness took over. He strangled Paul, tied a heavy stone to his neck, and pushed his body into the deep water. The splash echoed through the night. Martin stood there, panting, watching the ripples fade. The friend who had once given up everything for him was gone. He got back into the car and drove away, leaving behind the river that now held his darkest secret. The next morning, Lagos woke up to its usual noise, the honking of cars, the voices of hawkers, the rhythm of life that never stopped. But in one corner of the city, silence swallowed a home. Paul's parents tried calling him that morning, expecting to hear his cheerful voice telling them he was on his way to visit. The phone rang endlessly, unanswered. At first, they thought maybe he was busy. But as the day stretched into night, their worry grew. They called Martins, who picked up immediately. His voice sounded shocked. "Wait, Paul hasn't reached home?" he asked, pretending to be surprised. "But he left Lagos yesterday evening." Paul's parents froze. Something didn't feel right. That night, they couldn't sleep. The mother sat by the window, praying silently, while the father paced the room, trying to convince himself that maybe their son's phone had just run out of battery. But in the deepest part of their hearts, a storm of fear had begun to rise. Somewhere, deep beneath the waters of Lagos' quiet outskirts, their son lay lifeless, and the one man who could have told them the truth was the same one who smiled at them the next morning, assuring them, "Everything will be fine." 2 days passed, and there was still no sign of Paul. Then one afternoon, a call came that froze every drop of blood in their veins. The voice on the other end was rough, cold, and threatening. "We have your son," the caller said. "If you want to see him alive, don't call the police. We'll reach out again with our demands." The phone line went dead. Paul's mother screamed. His father's hands trembled as he held the phone. Within minutes, they called Martins, who rushed over pretending to panic. He sat beside them, comforting them with false tears and rehearsed words. "Don't worry, uncle. We'll get him back. I'll handle everything." The kidnappers, who were really Martins alone, called again that evening, demanding 20 million naira. "And only Martins will bring the money," the voice insisted. The parents didn't suspect a thing. They trusted him as much as their own son. They gathered the money quickly, selling some of their properties and borrowing the rest, just to save Paul. Martins took the money, left the house in a hurry, and drove straight to an abandoned area on the outskirts of town, the same river where Paul's body lay hidden. He dropped the money there and returned home, pretending he had handed it to the kidnappers. "They said they'll release him tomorrow," he said. Hope lit up Paul's mother's eyes for the first time in days. But tomorrow came, and no one saw Paul. The next day, Martins disguised as the kidnappers called Paul's father again. "Your son is still with us, but we need another 20 million or he dies. You have till the end of tomorrow to pay the money." Paul's father, exhausted and terrified, immediately called Martins and told him about the call that he just received from the kidnappers. And Martins, wearing a mask of sorrow, said softly, "Uncle, please, let's just give them what they want. Paul's life is worth more than money." His voice shook with fake emotion. Once again, the desperate parents obeyed. They sold more land, borrowed more from friends, and handed Martins another bag of cash. He repeated the same ritual, driving off to hide it in the same lonely bush. Then returning with fake updates. "They promised he will be released by morning," he said again. Each night, Paul's mother sat by the door, waiting, whispering her son's name, "Paul, my son, please come home." Martins would sit beside her, pretending to comfort her, hiding the guilt that was now clawing at his heart. But greed is a beast that knows no mercy. It whispered to him, "You can still get more. They will believe anything you say." And Martins listened. He called Paul's father again, pretending to be the kidnappers. He told him that they want another 20 million for the release of Paul. This time, Paul's father's eyes narrowed. He didn't say a word, but deep down, a seed of suspicion was planted. Something didn't add up. Paul's father was an old man, but he wasn't a fool. That night, while Martins slept in the guest room, he called the police secretly. He explained everything, the ransom calls, the repeated demands, the strange pattern. The officer on the other line listened carefully and said, "Sir, we'll help you. Don't let Martins know you've contacted us. Give him the next ransom as usual, and we'll follow him." The next morning, Martins came with his usual script. They called again. "They want the money delivered by this evening." The parents nodded calmly, pretending to believe him. They handed him the bag filled with money, only this time, it was secretly tagged with a tracking device. As Martins drove off to his secret drop-off spot, plainclothed officers trailed him at a distance. He parked his car near the bushes by the riverside and dropped the bag under a tree, just like before. He then drove off, planning to return at night to collect it. The police hid in the shadows, waiting. Hours passed. The night fell. Crickets sang. Then, like a thief in his own crime, Martins crept back through the darkness. He bent to pick up the bag, and that was when the floodlights came on. "Freeze!" shouted a voice. Before he could run, police surrounded him, guns raised. The same bush that had hidden his evil became the witness of his downfall. Martins fell to his knees, trembling. Tears streaming down his face. The lie had finally caught up with him. At the station, Martins broke down completely. There was no more room for pretense. He confessed everything, how he had poisoned Paul, driven him to the river, and drowned him. How he had faked the kidnappings and collected ransom after ransom. The officers sat in cold silence as he spoke, their faces hard, their hearts heavy. Paul's parents were called in, and when they arrived, they could barely stand. The man they had loved like their own son was the one who had destroyed their real one. "Why, Martins?" Paul's mother cried. "Why did you do it?" Martins wept bitterly, his face buried in his hands. "I don't know," he sobbed. "It was envy. It ate me alive. He had everything I wanted. I loved him, but I also hated him." The room was silent except for the sound of his broken cries. Later, the police recovered Paul's body from the river, wrapped in the same clothes he wore that night. His father fainted at the sight. His mother screamed until her voice was gone. When the case went to court, the judge's words echoed through the courtroom, "Envy is a silent killer. It destroys the heart before it destroys others." Martins was sentenced to death. On the day of his execution, he asked for one thing, to see Paul's parents. With tears in their eyes, they came. "Please," he whispered, "forgive me." Paul's father looked at Martins for a long time. His face was full of pain. And his eyes were red from crying. When he finally spoke, his voice shook, heavy with both love and anger. "Martins. You took my only son. The same boy who called you brother. You took my joy, my pride, my future, and you threw it into the river. I still remember when you and Paul ran through our house, laughing so loudly the walls shook. You two shared food, dreams, clothes, even your secrets. You were part of our family. Paul loved you with all his heart. He trusted you more than anyone else in this world, and this is how you repaid him. Every time I see your face, I still see that little boy who held Paul's hand on his first day of school. I see the friendship that once made everyone believe goodness still existed. But that boy is gone now. Lost in the darkness of envy, may the earth never forget what you did. May every river whisper Paul's name when the wind blows, you asked me to forgive you. But how can a father forgive the man who killed his own son, a son who once called that man brother? I have no forgiveness left in my heart. May God judge you, Martins, for what you have done. As he finished speaking, the room fell silent. Martin's tears dropped to the floor. Every word from Paul's father felt like a knife, not of anger, but of memory. A reminder of the love he had destroyed with his own hands. Martins closed his eyes as guards led him away, and that was how the story of two boys who once shared everything ended, one in a grave, the other about to be executed, both destroyed by envy, the friend that kills without a knife.
Thanks for watching that wonderful story. I hope you have been able to learn that envy, when allowed to grow unchecked, can destroy even the deepest love and turn a brother into a murderer. And when trust is given blindly without wisdom, it can place your life in the hands of the very person who wishes you harm. Ultimately, only vigilance, gratitude, and humility can protect the heart from envy and prevent love from becoming a weapon of destruction. Please subscribe, like, comment and share. See you on the next one. Bye for now.